Start Your Dungeons is now sponsored by Level Up Games, the largest and best board game, role playing, miniature games, collectible card game, hobby, and nerd store in Georgia. With a wide variety of events and product lines, Level Up Games is sure to have the product for every gamer you know. With 3 convenient locations in Duluth, Johns Creek, and Athens, there's bound to be a store near you. Plus, they ship anywhere in the U.S. from their online shop at levelupgamesatl.com. Thanks for sponsoring the channel, Level Up Games, and check out their event calendar and online store at the link in the description.
Hello everyone, welcome to Start Your Dungeons. I'm Adam.
I'm Bryce.
And today we're having a look at the new Arkham Horror role-playing game starter box from Edge Studios. And so Bryce ran this last night with a group at our local store, Level Up Games in Athens. And so we've got a lot to talk about.
Right.
I didn't get to play. I have bought my own copy of this, and
Funnily enough, because I bought my copy at Gen Con, went, I got it early, and then you went, look what I bought at the local store same day, and I was like...
So, what comes in this box?
A lot. I will say this, box retails for $35. You do get a lot in here. You get, something that's really cool to me is you get real physical, like, evidence things throughout the game that they've done for a lot of the other, like, Call of Cthulhu games and stuff like that. So, specific, like, letters. Yeah, and ciphers and things. There's a cipher. There's 2, like, letters written in, ritual language. You've got full-on maps with grids, which is important. I will talk about this. This is not, in my opinion, theater of the mind. I don't think you can.
Right.
A deck of cards that has like a bunch of like little weapons and different things that you can find in game. There's like improvised weapons in here and stuff like that. Some of the spells and things. 2 boxes of dice. One of them is the regular dice that you use, and one of them's horror dice, which are really cool. And I will talk about that of something I actually like. I will say this: they only come with 12 of each dice. Player characters alone, if you play all 5 of them, because there's 5 character portfolios you can play as. You need 30 dice. So there are not enough D6s to play this game. I just want to say that out front. Even as a DM, there's a lot you need.
And if you get it at Level Up Games, they give you an extra set of D6s.
Yeah, I didn't get that when I bought it at Gen Con.
I know.
I was super mad about that.
Totally
you get some really cool ones. So then you get the book, which is The Hungering Abyss, which I'll talk about a little bit later. It's both the rule book and an adventure book, so it teaches you as you play. And
kind of like the Star Wars beginner boxes,
right,
where it's kind of weaved into the story.
An actual GM screen, which is nice. I like cardboard. The thing, cardboard, and it has literally the entire game rules. The only thing it doesn't have is, I think it's called inspiration on here, that you can use to like add bonuses. It doesn't have that, and they use that a lot. I wish they had put that on there. Ally and enemy cards, which are pretty nice. I mean, for some of them, because you'll need them for multiples, they'll have multiple, like, this is the first and the second bad guy or whatever, which are nice quality. They look really cool. And then all the tokens you get, where you get actually a lot of tokens. You get stuff to do a slide puzzle. We'll talk about the slide puzzle in a little bit. It's an interesting idea. There's tokens for characters, all the characters that come in the game, enough tokens to do all the enemies as well, and then tracking for like mind damage, wounds, ammo, different things like that.
Overall, I mean, the quality looks really good.
I do think it's high quality. I do want to say it's high quality. I like the dice. I like the paper. I like everything in here. It doesn't feel cheated. For $35, it does feel like a really good box set.
So how easy is it to get into this game?
So I think this kind of came out, and maybe I misread this, but I swear they said this thing had like 10 missions in it, like kind of settings and things like that, and they would take maybe an hour each. That's a lie. So in my honest opinion, there's 3 acts in this book. There's the first act, which is 3 sections. The second act, which is 3 sections, and the final act, which is 1 or 2 sections, I believe. Mm-hmm. The thing I'll say is, Act 1 is like, the first session, or section that you do, is you just literally figuring out this cipher and rolling your characters and knowing information. That takes 20 minutes. So, like, Then there's a combat that happens. What's nice is the book will go in the front and tell you, hey, this is all the stuff for the game master. Here's all the stuff you're going to need for each thing, which I really like, actually. I think that's really cool. It tells you, hey, you're going to need these villain profile cards, whatever.
To get you prepared.
Right, get you kind of prepared. And then all the things you'll need to play that adventure, and then it goes into the scene. So it'll explain new rules and things like that when it comes up. I will say I was really proud with the way they did the rules in some ways, because like they've included like wounds and maps and like what dice are and like trauma. Like they just did a really good job of like putting photos in the thing to show you what actual thing was what. And I appreciate that, because I feel like a lot of other games sometimes go, use the blue token die. And I'm like, well, there's 4 blue tokens, so please tell me. So I ended up running the first half, and then I ran one. There's 3 different like side missions you can do in Act 2. I ran one of the side missions in there. We'll talk about it, I guess, later for new and experienced DMs, but for players, I think it is actually a little bit difficult to get into this. This is a character sheet, right? Like, there's a lot actually on this character sheet.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
You've got 10 different stats. You've got all this stuff which kind of explains how to play. I will say one of the things I don't like is they say examples of complex actions, but those are really the only complex actions you can kind of take, and you can kind of make your own up if you want, and the DM can decide, but I just wish they had kind of been a little bit more like Monster of the Week and said, here are the 8 different complex actions you can take on your turn.
Yeah.
The equipment, make sure you read that, guys, because like my group, one of the girls kept taking damage that was playing with us and then realized she had armor and she would have taken 1 less the whole time. And then it also tells you about how you level up, because you do level up in the game if you play through the whole thing. And then Insight, which is like kind of like a magical thing that you can use to add additional dice and things like that. There's a lot to it. I think they were playing through, and there's also on the back of your story so far. So it tells you about your character story. I'll say this. I think if you're going to play this, not as new RPG player friendly. I had 2 veteran role players and 1 girl who had literally played 1 role playing game session before she showed up.
Yeah,
she had a little bit of trouble. They even had a little bit of trouble with how much stuff.
One of the things that I noticed just from looking at these is this is really similar. Like I mentioned before, it's similar to the way that it's laid out for the Star Wars role playing game.
Right.
However, I feel like because the dice on the Star Wars one are color-coded, and you can see everything with color coding, I feel like those are easier. It does exactly the same thing as these character sheets, it's just that it's easier to see on the Star Wars ones.
And for getting in as a DM, I read this and thought I could run it pretty easily, and then they started asking me questions, and I went, you know what, I actually don't remember, and I would have to look, and I will say, not having the rules consolidated at the front is actually kind of sometimes a problem, because you have to go, oh, well, is that in the first act or the second act that they talk about how to use these dice? And, like, to each their own on that. I just was kind of at times going, I don't know where this is, and, like, I had to find advantage and disadvantage at one point, and it didn't even explain it. It just said sometimes you get advantage or disadvantage, and then I looked under aid, and it said, oh, if you give advantage, you give them an additional dice. They drop the lowest, or disadvantage, they gain an additional dice, but they drop the highest. I was like, why wasn't that just a part of the advantage and disadvantage notes, I think?
So that's like, in other beginner boxes, Star Wars, and also like the, where is it? The Rokugan, Legend of the Five Rings. That one, it has a separate rule book.
I wish they
adventure teaches you how to play, separate rule book.
I wish they'd done that. I also just wish there was a good reference sheet in the back of this, like just an appendix or something to help you. I think that would have helped it a lot.
What do you think about the overall system? This is a D6 system. It's
a new system.
It's a dice pool. What makes this unique?
So the dice system is basically every player character has 6 dice. And what they do is they will pick to do something, either a simple action or a complex action. Most simple actions cost you a die, but you don't have to roll them. It's like move or do things like that. And then complex actions involve you rolling, and you can spend 1 up to as many dice as you want. And then when you roll against a stat. So if you're using range combat, you use your range attack. You roll as many dice, 1 to up as many dice as you have left in your pool. And then for every, if you're about a 4-up to hit, every 4-up you hit is a success. Mm-hmm. In this game, most of the times you're trying to get 1 success. And then if you roll multiple successes, you get additional effects.
Okay.
I do like that system, actually. But it is weird that you can be like, I want to make a melee attack. Roll. I miss. I want to roll another die and see if I miss. I want to roll another die now and see if I miss. And keep taking those actions, like kind of style things. You can technically do that. But every die you don't use, you can use as reactions to dodge and not get hit by things. They ended up playing none of the combat characters in this, so they were in combat trying to do it and struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it is a little bit combat heavy in the first encounter. I will say I love the horror dice system. So basically, instead of whenever you take damage, you lose dice in your dice pool. So you start with 6, you might go to 5. The horror die replace dice in your pool and stay there, but if you ever roll a 1, you suffer a trauma. So there's you can use them as regular dice, but they also can cause traumas to happen. I
mean, that's pretty neat.
It's a cool idea. I really like that. I will say that I think the understanding of what your character can do, someone was playing Fern, Dr. Fern, who's the therapist sort of character, and he was like, I'm not doing anything on my turns because I don't want to fight. And I was like, well, you can do aid actions to give people advantage, which is give them an extra dice, they roll them and take the lowest number out. If it's disadvantage, you get an additional die, but you have to take one of the highest numbers out. So a very interesting sort of system, and the way they do it basically is complex and simple actions I like. I think it's interesting. I don't know if there was a need to do... I think it would have been better in some ways, I think, though, if you had and maybe I read the rules wrong, but I swear you can take multiple complex actions. So, it seems to me like you would just keep making melee attacks, but maybe I'm wrong on that. So, it just seemed very strange the way they kind of set up how you would do different actions. Because some turns were well, I only move 10 feet with a simple die, and I'm going to run up the stairs, so I'm going to spend all 6 of my dice to run 60 feet and just stop. That's all I'm doing in a turn. And it's okay, that's fine. There was also some weird magic stuff. One of the girls in here had magic, and they used a spell that lets you turn to mist. And they were trying to go through a keyhole and do all this stuff. It was really cool sounding, but then I was really confused a little bit. And I think if you're going to game master this, you might want to read over stuff a little bit harder. I read over everything, and then there's always well, this lasts for a scene, and I'm like, well, scenes are a long time. What's it? Oh, only the player's scene. Okay, that may there's some differences, and the difference between a narrative scene and more of a combat scene sort of thing. So, I don't dislike this system, but I don't know if it's really gripping me. I don't know. If you play Call of Cthulhu, part of me almost thinks that Call of Cthulhu might be easier than this in some ways.
Well, you can't. I mean, even though a character sheet in Call of Cthulhu has a lot of stuff on it, it's an easy thing. It's just you're just trying to roll a D100 and get a low value.
Right.
You're just trying to just roll that D100. So it's not hard, especially because you're a regular person,
right?
You could imagine yourself in a lot of scenarios, but it sounds like this is.
It felt like it was trying to be heroic, and you're not a heroic character.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yep.
I will also say something that, because there's nowhere else to really talk about it, and I'll just kind of talk about it now. The group that I played with really didn't like how board gamey this is, which is a weird thing to say, but so I don't have the pieces out, but this is a slide puzzle. So you make a slide puzzle, and your players have to actually go through and complete a legit slide puzzle to open the room that they have, one of the rooms, or open a box. My players hated that. A lot. It was making them actually get very frustrated and upset with each other, and I actually ended up pulling it out of the thing and being oh, well, let's not do.
It's very similar to the Mansions of Madness board game, the last edition before they went digital, requiring digital. it had all these slide puzzles and lock puzzles and like fuse box things and stuff, and it could be really hard.
And I feel like this is that. That is very much what this is it's taking, in some ways, and there's nothing against it, it's just like something that I wasn't expecting it to be. It does feel like a board game with heavy role-playing aspects at times.
So is this a complete game? Can you use this to play indefinitely?
No. I mean, you can play this adventure over and over again if you want, but it's not an indefinite thing. I believe there is an actual core rulebook coming out for this at some point. But there is a lot of cool stuff in here. I mean, all the tokens are nice. These are really nice as well. The little sheets that talk about the characters and the allies and the enemies. I will say this. Genuinely, as a DM, I was frustrated trying to run multiple characters with this because you have to have D6s for them just like the players. So I had 5 enemies behind the board trying to move their dice and roll them around. And it's just a thing of going, oh, this person's going to go. Let me roll one of their dice. Yeah. Cool. Put that back and remember I've used that one. Oh, kind of thing. It was kind of little bit a lot.
Need a lot of dice.
Yeah, you need a lot of D6s. And, it comes with 12. That's not enough for the players. That's not enough for the DM. I don't know. It just felt very weird how much dice you needed, and they gave you so little.
Yeah.
Especially D6s. Because it's not a D20 based system where you might have... even if you have a standard RPG set, you have 4 D6s at most. So it was just very strange, I think, that they did that.
So who is this for? Is this for new players or for seasoned players?
Run it with both. I do think... you have to get in a mindset of understanding how board gamey this is in some ways, and if you can't get in that mindset and try and roleplay this, it might not work well for you. I actually think it might not
work for either.
Yeah. I actually think that it might work better for people who aren't or are more board game focused in some ways and like the puzzle aspect of this. If you really like that, this is almost better for you.
And see, I do. So
I cannot wait for you to try the slide puzzle.
Hearing the slide puzzle thing, I do a lot of puzzle kind of stuff, on my own. So when I see that, and I like Mansions of Madness, and I like all the fiddly little bits. So I'm just that does appeal to me.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that I would like. But I can definitely tell if that's a thing that's holding you up from finishing the adventure. Probably frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it was literally to where they were like, well, if we kill these ghouls, we probably don't have to do the slide puzzle. So let's kill these ghouls, even though we're not combat oriented.
I'm one of the weirdos who would be like, you guys go play.
Yeah, exactly.
The puzzle.
So, I don't know. I do think, this is a weird one for me to almost talk about because it doesn't almost feel like a role-playing game in some aspect. It feels like a board game with a lot more role-playing aspects to it. So, in part of my ways, I'm like, is this for new and experience? I don't know, because almost this isn't... I'm not selling this to role-playing game people now. I think I'm selling this to board game players, actually.
Kind of like as an entry into role-playing.
Yeah, because I think it fills that niche in between. It's a little bit of both, almost. More than I thought. I genuinely was like, oh, this is all really cool when I opened it. I remember messaging you and saying, I'm so excited for these slide puzzles, all this cool stuff. And then I texted him after running this, and I went, man, this did not go as fun as I thought it would be. Which sucked.
So, I mean, that kind of answers the question, but I'll just ask straight out, are you happy that you bought the product? Kind of on the line?
I'm on the fence with it. I didn't love running it. I had fun with it, but I think, the group that I played it with got very, very frustrated with it. And I think their unenjoyment of some of it gave me some unenjoyment of running it, which happens at times.
Yeah.
And nothing against them. I just think, we all went in with very preconceived notions of what this was going to be, and it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I do think I don't regret buying it, but I've already said that we're doing a spooky horror themed Halloween thing in October for Level Up Athens, and I was like, I'm actually happy I didn't put this one because I think this one is something that's going to sit on my shelf for a little while and maybe not get played again until I find the right group for it.
Give it a little simmer inside your brain, find the right group. Maybe if this doesn't really scratch that itch for you, try Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Try Trail of Cthulhu. There's, of course, the Arkham Horror board game, Mansions of Madness, Eldritch Horror. There's so many different Cthulhu mythos games out there. If this one doesn't do it for you, then there's probably something that you'll like more.
And what I'll say too is like, I actually think like if you like the Arkham Horror like game, pick this up maybe. Like again, like I think you might really enjoy it for that. There's just a lot of things in this too. Where like I was talking about this last night with them. I actually really like the D6 dice pool thing. I actually think that's kind of cool. I just don't know if this is actually the game I want to use that system with, if that makes sense. Like I almost wonder if I would prefer to use that system in another, maybe not setting, but more like style of game.
More like fantasy.
Maybe not fantasy, but like horror, but maybe, more like superhuman-esque. Like instead of you just being normal people trying to struggle against horrors like Call of Cthulhu, maybe more like, witches and I don't know, like more like Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of style. Like I feel like
be interesting.
It almost plays in some ways during the combat. Man, it feels like a skirmish game sometimes. Like it's like an action economy sort of thing, you know, trying to do things like very board gamey.
Yeah.
Like again, it's just very board gamey. It is an RPG, definitely, but it is more board gamey than I think anything we've reviewed on the channel before.
Huh.
How about now? We usually ask too. Like, I don't know if I want to DM or play this again for a little while. But hearing me talk about this and you own it, are you still interested in being a player and DMing it too?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that you have said that has made me
ick.
Like, nothing's giving me the ick.
Right.
I still think that I want to try running it or playing it. But I think you're right. The right group is required. I have friends who I think would like this. There are some of my coworkers who I believe who also play role playing games who I think would like this. But I don't think this is just a grab and go kind of thing as much as I would have liked for it to be.
Yeah, I don't think this is one shot at a store kind of thing if you don't know the people. Just for me, I just don't think it. The group I had is people I regularly game with, and they did not enjoy it, and that was immediately like that's not good thing.
Yeah.
And I don't have that happen a lot with games I run up there. This is one of the few that it has, but it was like, man, like I'm really sad y'all don't like this, and also I didn't have as great a time running it as I thought I would. So,
well, if you have any questions about the Arkham Horror role playing game, or if you've played it and have some ideas, put them down below. And until next time,
y'all take care.
Bye.